whether I do 5 garbage films in the future,
right?
Will that change how you see Paresh Rawal? Almost certainly
course
not.
not. Of course not.
क्या ही सवाल? मैंने actually मिर्जापुर देखी नहीं है.
Wow.
You know, I thought there would be a lot, but actually it was the opposite.
Yeah.
There were a lot of action sequences where I was a bit hesitant about, you know, there's एक आँखों में उनके रेत फेंक.
Right.
35 पे तो career
खत्म हो जाता. That's true, yeah.
You know, so the longevity that this field promised. And then, hi, this is Aditya Rawal, and you're watching me on India Forums. Thank you.
Subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss another update from India Forums.
Hi everyone, this is Kunal Kothari. You're watching me on India Forums, and there are some catchphrases that just stay with you. You know, there are sometimes one-liners, there are sometimes 3-4 worders, but I think Big Enjoy is just gonna stay with me for the rest of my life. And I'm already using it. I ain't kid you. I'm not kidding you. I started using it the moment I saw it in the trailer, and it is just accentuated like 10 times more after watching the film. And so stellar, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
it is fabulous. It is just fabulous, and I'm sure you know everybody's gonna ask you how does it feel, and I'm not gonna go there.
Right. Okay.
That's the most common question. I don't want to go there.
Fantastic.
What I want to know from you is that you know the moment I saw Prince, you know he enters. I see that you know there is you know where this is gonna go because he's this lawless and spoiled brat.
Yeah.
He has no rules. There is absolutely no redeeming qualities to him whatsoever, right? But what I noticed is that his name is Shashikant in the film.
Yeah.
But Prince it's more like a metaphor.
Right.
That he lives like a prince because that's his ground, like his ruling ground, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that sort of translates because he's like I can kill whoever I want to.
Right.
I want to know how do you humanize this to make it, because I felt for him. Even I started questioning my morality that if I'm going right or not. So I want to understand how do you crack that?
I think one thing that was always front and center for us was that between Suresh sir and myself was that we wanted to create the idea of this, the villain that we actually see less of, in the last 10-15 years. You've not seen a lot of those out and out sort of villains.
True.
So that was one thing that we really wanted to explore. But of course, because of the way Suresh sir writes, because of the way even I operate as an actor, you still want something to sort of hold on to, whether it is again, his half sister and his sort of insecurities when it comes to where he comes from.
Right.
So I think that the idea was that we keep that present, but we are not sort of harping on it too much.
True.
Which then allows, say for example, a viewer like yourself to still feel like, वो कभी-कभी ऐसा लगा भी कि, you feel
for him. Yeah.
And then I think the idea is also if somebody is, entertaining to watch, then as a viewer, you automatically begin to relate to them because you're like, I want to see more of what he's doing. So I think those two factors, I suppose, have come into play.
Yeah, and because as you mentioned, the moment he's sort of berated by his half sister, you're like, oh, okay, he's a product of shit that has gone wrong, maybe in his earlier year, through his sister, of course, because not much is explored. It's a movie; you can only go to a certain extent, right?
No, but you're absolutely right. I think when you see that, and the fact that he's a product of the world that the environment that he was nurtured in. In fact, there are so many people in that region where a lot of friends have actually said to me, "अरे मेरे गांव में भी एक ऐसा है, उसका नाम भी प्रिंस है."
Lovely.
So that's been great.
Super lovely. And now I'll get to something because I think the moment, at least in the first impact itself, like I was pleasantly, not wrong, but pleasantly that thought completely went away from my head after I saw the film. But from when the trailer came in, and I think it was a pretty general consensus that there were these parallels from, the character of Munna from Mirzapur. It felt very much like it, at least on the outset of it, right? Okay, this guy is also, like he's a brat, like he has a father, or in that here he is also like, because he's ruling because his father was that kind of a person, or his half sister is, right? So was there ever a conversation or, a thought that we don't want to veer into that territory?
Actually it's so funny. I love a lot of Excels and Amazon's shows, and have been, whether it was Inside Edge or The Hard, which which I absolutely love. मैंने actually मिर्ज़ापुर देखी नहीं है.
Wow.
So very honestly, and funnily enough, even I'm thinking about it now, Suresh sir ke sath bhi it never came up in discussions.
Lovely.
So I don't know how to answer that question actually. So it didn't even feature in the
Super, yeah.
in our chats, but the way you've described him, and then also ever since release, some people did
Must have marked
mention
upon it, yeah.
that. But I think it's again somebody who's a product of their surroundings.
True.
And we see that so often in life, and this is not just necessarily. I feel like this character also, that archetype of the character, why that sort of works also is because we see that in life everywhere. Right, as in you, I am sure, have seen that in some, maybe your workplace, maybe where you live, maybe in your friend circle. The same way, it doesn't have to be just limited to gangsters. So we see that, we see entitled people that have their own insecurities.
Correct.
But because of their insecurities and their entitlement, they actually wreak havoc on everyone's lives, whether professionally or personally or whatever. So I think that is one of the reasons why I suppose it is also a character that always seems to land, if obviously done well.
Yeah, because I love the fact that you mentioned if it lands, because it can easily veer into the caricaturish category as well, right? Because you're like, okay, this is too much. Like, I get it that he's like a lawless brat or whatever, but this is too much. But it doesn't. Like,
I'm glad you think
genuinely. I mean, again, I don't mean to flatter you, but genuinely, it goes into those, right pitches, because you see these moments, and especially, there are these instances, especially in the climax as well, without spoiling much for people. The moment I see that fear in his eyes, that his so-called goon friends and these people, they have like deserted him, and he's like, oh shit, I'm alone, I've always been alone. Stuff like that. I think it's so poignant.
Thank you. And but as far as the calibration of that performance is concerned, to be honest, with this role, it was, with Daldal, there was a lot of like sort of thinking in terms of planning, in terms of also how many hours has it been since he last used? Abhi kitni, what are the withdrawal symptoms? Like, there was a lot of those calculations. With this, it was just much more visceral. And it was much more go out and sort of express yourself. And then Suresh sir would, sort of calibrate as required. So, if that is the case, then the full credit for that goes to
for sure, man, for sure. And it is just coincidental. I was actually talking to Radhika as well recently, and obviously, people talked about and asked her about how was it working. I know Anil Kapoor is an institution in itself, and he's the maddest and the best person on the set to be with. He's a vibe, and energy. His energy just rubs off on everyone. But what I want to know from you is that as an actor, who's done a Faraz, who's done a Bamfad, who's done stuff like that, and now you've gotten into the territory of this is not going to be commercials for films or commercial cinema, speaking conventionally. I don't mean in an unconventional manner. But then when you have a project like this is going to be like the sweet spot where conventions and misconventions or whatever you call it sort of land in the middle way, and then you have an Anil Kapoor coming onto the project. So obviously, I guess there are inhibitions which might have been taken away right away, courtesy what Anil Kapoor brings to the table. But when you are allowed to let loose, because your character has to let loose, what are the kind of limitations, or like okay, don't go there or don't do this when you are in front of Anil Kapoor?
I thought there would be a lot, but actually it was the opposite.
There
were a lot of action sequences where I was a bit hesitant about, there's a आँखों में उनके रेत फेंक
right.
So for me that was like, okay, how do I do it? Then I was a little bit sheepish about it the first time. He himself was like, "Arey, just do it. Just don't think about it. Just do it." And the best way to do it is to go all out. Don't worry about me. And the moment he said that, I was completely at ease and then liberated. And then because of that, then later there were some moments where I thought, maybe if we do something slightly different or something more, it might be more interesting. So then it was just a simple question of asking Suresh sir if he's okay with it, then asking Anil sir, okay, sir, is it okay if I... Don't even ask me.
Lovely.
And I mean, that, like I said, that's his grace, that's his magnanimity that makes for, I suppose, a good camaraderie on set.
Yeah, and that's why these legends are what they are, right? At the end
yeah.
of the
I
day,
mean, you can't be working for what now
40
plus
plus.
years if you aren't a thorough professional.
fabulous, yeah, super. And now I'll come to you, yeah, because I've obviously tried to research, and I was like, oh, okay, this guy's been a football player, and I love football.
Oh, really?
I've been playing it all my life, unfortunately not for the past few years. And I love it. So I'll just completely veer away from,
Lovely.
entertainment for a while. And I want to ask, what position do you play?
When I used to play professionally, I was playing in goal.
Lovely.
But
Oh, you were a goalie? I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that. I've been a goalie as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or a defender sometimes.
Okay. So so now I play actually amateur semi-professional league, which is our team actually just got promoted to the top division of Bombay football now, the elite division. So there I play either anywhere in the defense.
Super, super. Acha, I thought that you're going to be a quintessential striker, or
No,
like an attacking
you're
midfielder.
also, I mean, I am young by the standards of our industry, but by the
Football
standards
industry,
of
it's
football
not.
industry, I'm close to
I
the
agree.
end of my
Closer to the
career than-
retirement thing. Like,
than
okay,
I am
30
to
plus,
my-
your time is ticking already.
Exactly.
Lovely. But how? Like, did you ever have that thing that okay, I really want to pursue this as my full-time profession, and then acting and writing maybe just happened later?
Absolutely. There was a point till like I was 21, I was actually thinking of playing football professionally. But then, I think it just arrived at a crossroads. There were a lot of things actually that sort of made me take this decision, which I'm pretty glad about. One was, I was already writing by the time I was playing professionally.
Right.
Because you're training maybe max twice a day, 6 घंटा हो गया, बाकी दिन में आप क्या कर रहे हो? I started writing, really started enjoying it. Then there was that question of also like, you're really enjoying this. You've grown up watching English Premier League football and all of these films, global films that you love. As a footballer in India, you could play absolutely out of your skin, and the best you could do is probably, maybe be one of India's top 5.
Yeah, the ISLs or
goalkeepers
something.
play.
Yeah.
तभी तो ISL
ISL भी नहीं था.
another
That's true.
point.
That's true.
So maybe you can go to maybe Malaysia or
Correct.
Middle East.
You're right. Yeah.
But you will never be a part of something that you grew up watching and loving. You won't reach there.
Never, not gonna happen.
That was one thing. Then there was also India में football का
कुछ नहीं था तभी
भविष्य
उतना.
क्या है, because तभी ISL भी नहीं था. So I think those discussions, and also absolutely loving what I was doing when it came to writing and acting. Also the idea like we just spoke about कि 35 पे तो career खत्म हो जाता है.
That's true, yeah.
So the longevity that this field promised, and then once you enter the field, then you realize that actually the horizon is so vast.
That's true.
That you could get lost in this multiple times over and find yourself and get lost again, and it will hopefully be an eventful enough life.
Superman. What's your favorite club?
Southampton, actually. Yeah.
Wow!
Because when
you're the first person.
Yeah, I mean, I often get that reaction. But when I started watching as a kid, there were a couple of strikers that I really loved in Southampton.
Lovely.
And the goalkeeper as well, of course. So they were actually, at that time, they were the team that was sort of punching above their weight.
Right.
कि आपका budget समझो शायद bottom 10 clubs में होगा या last bottom 5 clubs में होगा, but you are able to be in the top 7, top 8 teams. So the underdog story was always, as a football fan, you will understand.
Yeah, I just hope Southampton had a Leicester story, like 2016.
हाँ, but वो
बहुत too far-fetched.
miracle तो एक ही होता है.
एक ही होता है. I mean, in the recent past, I think Dannings has been one of the
but
more but in the
तो काफी
earlier
समय
years,
हो गया,
we can go on nerding about football. I cannot stop, but I'll switch gears again. Lovely. Now coming to this writing. Okay, I was boggled by the fact that you've been a co-writer on Panipat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I couldn't, like, in the best way possible. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And this is great, like, because, okay, so I want to understand this because as a writer, stories, the thoughts, or everything come natural to you. You put them on paper, try to make it, appealing enough to be a screenplay, etc., etc. But I want to know, how does that work for a historical script, or like mythological? It's not mythological, it's not done yet. But I think that's a very different ballgame altogether.
I don't necessarily think so,
Really?
because I think, see, the first thing is that, are you interested in the story that you're telling? And if you're interested, and if it's a different world, whether it's a period film or a present day film, like for example, if Now, when it comes to Subedar, I'm sure Sir will have had to have done a lot of research for sand mining.
Right.
We did a lot of research, even as the actors. So, to get into that, to be able to understand that world, to be able to tell a story of that world, you have to know much more about it. So, to start with, regardless of period or not, you have to be, मतलब you आपको वाकिफ होना है उस दुनिया से, right? So you have to be familiar with that world and all its nuances and facets. So that requires research, right? With history, in some ways, it can actually be easier if history is an interest of yours, which it is very much of my own. And Ashutosh sir was a director, so
I mean,
there is no question about that when it comes to history. So the idea is that you kind of know the battle you want to talk about, right? So you read up on that as much as possible. Then we would have a lot of discussions on the take that Ashutosh sir had in mind for the film. And then by that point now you have so much material,
right,
that actually the problem is the opposite, कि क्या रखना है?
Fab.
That becomes the thing. And then of course you want to make your scenes work and the dialogues pop, and that is part and parcel of the process, which is there again with any film. So to me, actually writing a period film I enjoyed more.
Lovely.
Because there's not only a physical world to be in, but also in terms of time you're entering a different
it's more like being transported even when you're doing research.
Exactly.
As opposed to actually writing it. Lovely, that's true. And now of course I'll circle back to something, because we had a conversation earlier during Dal Dal, and so you and Samara were sitting and I was just talking to the both of you, of course with the rest of the cast and team as well, and we were talking about the idea of bagging projects, and not really about nepotism, because again that's a rather bastardized word and I don't really get into that. However, I want to circle back to what you told me, because you said that there are perks, there are things 100%. That you come with when it comes to having a father and having a mother who's been in the industry for decades and decades, and that would be a conversation for a different day. So today is a different day. So I just want to understand that I'm sure these cliched questions have been asked you, and I don't want to talk about the pressures and advices and everything. However, when you have parents like that, do you for a moment look back and think that my choices are going to affect their legacy in one way or another, or does it ever become a factor?
No. What was a factor growing up was, you don't want to be found doing something that they would not be sort of proud of, or that they would be ashamed of.
Right.
And I'm talking about like regular life.
Correct.
कहाँ मतलब कहीं दारू पी के नाले में पड़े हुए मिले, या कोई गाड़ी वाड़ी ठोक दी. Those were things that one made sure कि यार that you don't want to do, because you don't want to spoil,
of course,
their reputation, and you just don't want to do that, right?
As a human being.
But when it comes to professional choices, absolutely not. Not at all. मतलब whether I do 5 garbage films in the future,
right,
will that change how you see Paresh Rawal? Almost certainly
not. Of course not.
क्या ही सवाल है?
Yeah. And now that he obviously at the end of the day he's a father, and and even as mother Swaroop ma'am, both when they look at you and now you are getting into the space that not only there is acclaim coming in, there is love coming in, and nobody knows it better than a Paresh Rawal, because he was never the hero so to speak. He just was an actor who would turn into a chameleon and do a character on these range. He's seeing that in you in different ways right now. 5 years and 5 to 6 different characters completely. Of course, I'm sure he feels proud of you, but he also would have his say on things that that okay, what, Aditya, this was that, this is that, and I don't mean it as an advice, but how much do you take it into an actual effect?
A lot actually, because again, their experience is invaluable, and if I can make use of it without having gone through that whole journey, why would I not? So we sit down and we talk about all manner of things, especially the actual work that we're doing, but also in terms of conducting oneself in a given situation. Sometimes I'm in doubt about I really love this person and I would like to work with them, but this thing that they're offering me is perhaps not something that's up my alley. How do I go about that?
Yeah.
And stuff like, as simple stuff like that, on to other more complicated things.
True.
Like actually making a scene work, you know.
Yeah.
So on both levels, he is always somebody that I lean on.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and especially I recently I saw him on another show, and it was such a pleasure to see him laughing and bawling.
Yeah.
Of course, we're talking about you know, a different Gujarati Gujarati
Yes,
show.
Lavari.
Lavari, yeah. He was so much fun. I was like, oh my god, this is the Paresh Rawal I love, and I had no
I
idea.
think, give him the right kind of surroundings and the right kind of people to talk to, then he opens up a lot. Otherwise, he can be actually quite shy and quite like, you know, not so talkative. But yeah, give him the right surroundings. Like that show, then he'll really.
Does Gujarati come natural to you?
Yeah.
Lovely. And now I want to talk about a film. I don't know how many people are going to know about it or something. There is a film, either that's happened or not, I want to know past tense.
Yes.
And that's you and your father on screen
And
together.
Many other fantastic actors.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I think it should, like, hopefully it'll be out early next year.
Yeah.
Let's see. But yeah, I mean, to work with him, and then there's, you know, fantastic actors like Adil Hussain sir, Tanishta Chatterjee,
Right.
Sharib Hashmi, Dolly Ahluwalia ma'am. So it's just, I mean, phenomenal actors that one gets to sort of share the screen with. I really look forward to that film coming out.
So am I. I mean, right now it cannot be a better timing than this to see Aditya Rawal and Paresh Rawal come on screen together. This is
soon, yeah.
For sure, man. Lovely. And you know, now I'll get to a question because again, I was talking to Samara on a very different when I met her just right after Dal Dal, and I was talking to her about perseverance. You know, that of an actor, and it is such a, you know, like, it is such a romanticized thing, and at the same time a very tricky thing to be dealing with, because at the end of the day, when you are doing work, you know, you're doing your films, you're doing your shows, and of course they are sometimes far in between or whatever, you know, because the release date is never in your hands as an actor, right?
Yeah.
Then you have a burst like this when you have 2 projects coming, you know, and you don't know. Of course, you love the fact that there's love coming in, but there are these 6 to 7 years prior to that, which has been topsy-turvy, which has been that, oh, do I even exist for people, so to speak, right? How, like, as a person, I know that for you writing is you know, a common thing that you go back to, but that's not the case with every actor, right? So she would tell me that it's delusion. The fact that I don't have to think about anything else is just delusion. I want to know from your perspective on this.
I mean, you were spot on actually. See, first up, I don't think it's having perseverance or being to persevere. I don't think it's tricky.
Yeah.
Because it's not tricky, it's difficult.
It's difficult.
But वो जो है वो तो करना ही है ना.
Correct.
There is no other way about it. And there's no other way to persevere than to persevere.
True.
You know, than to keep knocking on doors, to keep giving auditions, to keep sharpening your own craft. So वो तो चलते ही रहता है. But yeah, I mean, I personally am very lucky because of my writing. So honestly, if you ask me where the last 6-7 years have gone, for me it's a blur. Because मैंने 5-6 as an actor projects किए हैं, 3 as a writer किए हैं. There are countless other films that I've written that haven't yet, may possibly see the light of day in the future. And I've done 3 plays also, 2 as a writer, producer, and 1 as an actor. So I have actually not
felt that.
So I am very grateful in that regard, and also that was something I knew even when I started. Okay, if I am a writer, I will have much more power than I will just as an actor, because I will have the ability to say no, and I will have something to wake up to, regardless of whether I'm getting acting work or not. So I think that was, I'm really glad to be able to do that, because I don't know if I have that delusion कि मैं घर पे बैठ के वो मेरे से शायद ना भी होता.
Correct.
You know, because I'm somebody who's gone to whether school, college, and cricket or football training from the age of 6. So you know, I have always been somebody who is out there, और मतलब सूरज ढलने के बाद ही आप घर आओगे.
Right.
So to not be that person would be quite difficult. So yeah.
It is, that's why I said, now for some actors it's rather tricky.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It is bonkers. Lovely. And you know, finally, in this context, on a parting note, now that you know, you get all this, I keep going back to the fact that you're getting love obviously for these projects now, and deservedly so. It's probably the best time for you in terms of, you know, this burst of everything that's come. How much do you make sure that, I wouldn't be asking that, not get it to your head, because I think that doesn't happen so easily also, right?
Yeah,
Because you have, the next day you are moving on to something else and you're working otherwise, right? However, do you sit and introspect about things yourself, that, oh my God, okay, this is what I've done, okay, now it's a good time?
100%.
Yeah.
How else do you plan your...
Yeah.
I mean, plan as in, best laid plans go awry, because you can't really plan anything, especially in an industry like ours. But still, you have a strategy, you employ tactics. So how do you do that without actually reflecting to begin with? So definitely, वो तो होता ही है और वो तो ज़रूरी है, but वो तो आप करोगे ही ना. आप कुछ भी जीवन में कुछ भी कर रहे हो, you're definitely going to do that. Even if it is about how to, you look at a room, or a room that you want to clean, say for example, you will have a strategy about how to go about it. So when you're talking about big life stuff, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And do you do those choices play a factor in how you go about your work in a way that you say yes or no sometimes?
Yeah. One cannot always be happy with the decisions one has made, but then that's where you sort of pick up, you learn, and you move forward. But speaking of Subedar and Daldal, I'm truly glad to have been given the opportunity, and then also to be able to do it.
For sure, man, for sure. I mean, as I said, right now it feels like a combo of Suresh Triveni and Aditya Rawal is just going to be a banger one, and two are done. So a trilogy soon.
Hopefully, man.
Something.
We have been writing something with sir. Hopefully,
awesome.
Maybe in the coming years that will see the light of.
Lovely. Now that you've done, a very subdued, addicted boy in Daldal, you've done a boisterous and crazy mad villain. Maybe God knows a completely third different person altogether.
There is actually, it's funny you mentioned that there are two things that are going to come out this year or again early next year, apart from the film we spoke of, that are absolutely different roles. As in,
I love it.
So chalk and cheese that I am just so excited for people to see it and for them to also see, you're seeing a sinner, now you'll see a saint.
I love that. I cannot wait to see, because I've just seen these, this range of yours, and I've been like, oh my God, he can do this, I had no idea he can do this. So I think that's the best thing.
The stuff that will come will also kind of be up that alley.
I completely agree. And finally, just on a parting note, do you read? I mean, this is such a lovely shelf of books.
This and I mean, it's also I read a lot. Whether it's right from the Agatha Christie's up there to the screenplays to the Elena Ferrante and so on and so forth. I'm trying to sort of read more Hindi and Gujarati also. Growing up, I didn't do a lot of that. So वो चल रहा है, वो भी सिलसिला जारी है. तो
I love it. And because I said in a parting note, I love the moment I understand that an actor is a reader, I want to get book recos as many as I can. I love reading.
Right.
So
what kind of books do you?
So I usually go to a Jeffrey Archer territory.
Achha.
So that's my very go-to thing. But I love Agatha Christie as well.
Okay.
Once in a while I'll do like completely mindfuck. There's a book called Mindfucked.
Right.
It's bonkers
so
good.
Then you're non-fiction.
Non-fiction. I love non-fiction a lot, which sometimes true crime, docu, which are then into docus.
I see.
So I just want to get good book records from you.
So I mean, if you like Jeffrey Archer, I think if you like something like a Jean Le Carré is great.
Oh yeah.
Right, because he was also, I think did he work in British intelligence or did he know a lot of people there?
Okay.
So his work is actually quite like the Ian Fleming stuff, but a little bit more grounded.
Lovely.
So like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is his. I think even Night Manager is.
Night Managers, I think. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's a little bit more grounded, but still super exciting, super pulsating. So I would say Jean Le Carré definitely. When it comes to non-fiction, I generally tend to read more history, geopolitics than I do self-help. So I'll suggest this book by Rajiv Chandrasekhan, called Life in the Emerald Isle.
Lovely.
Which is about how after America attacked Iraq and toppled Saddam Hussein,
awesome.
How they failed miserably in trying to bring their idea of democracy to Iraq, which was actually should have been a lesson, then should be a lesson.
Cannot be more opportune right now.
Yeah, but so that is something that is actually, it's interesting to read things that you read like there's a section in the Indian Express I think called 40 years ago.
Okay.
एक छोटा सा section है रोज आता है
Yeah.
वो मैं हमेशा पढ़ता हूँ because you realize the things that happened 40 years ago, very similar things are happening now.
Right now, yeah.
You know, and it just puts into perspective the world we live in,
True.
how human beings function, and sometimes how certain questions that we have about now, it gives you an idea of how those may be resolved because you're seeing that little capsule of time. Okay,
Super.
on this day 40 years ago, 4-5 news items, you know.
Awesome.
So I really do enjoy that also.
That also, I love it. I love it. I'm gonna get to that, and I'm also reading Metropolis. I just remembered while I was
Acha,
talking. So that also I'm sort of very engaged in right now. But yeah, I'm getting the John le Carre's and getting on my notes.
Definitely वो पढ़ लेना मजा है.
This was such a pleasure.
Real pleasure, man.
I had a ball, and I keep saying this that everything you've lined up ahead, I cannot wish but all the best. So yeah, I mean, I cannot wait that what you're going to be bowling over with me next.
Cheers, man.
Thank you,
so much.
man. Thank you.
Real pleasure.
Yeah.